Wikipedia. Meanwhile, to the Democrat, it says this game is far from over, and neither is this election. Alaska Senator Mark Begich on the work that is still to be done. Sir, very good to have you.
Always good to hear from you and see your show. And it was an interesting conversation just before we came on here.
What do you think of what Doug was raising, and that increasingly Democrats are coming to realize it's an uphill battle at the very least, but maybe they are setting the stage for what could be a more favorable 2012?
Well, I think, one thing I've learned in politics, every week is a lifetime. I mean, everything
right
changes
about that.
Dramatically. You know, I've seen it. Take my race 2 years ago. People kind of wrote me off early on. We came back and won that election. They wrote me off on election day, if you remember. And then it was a week later that I won my election. So, I think the American people are starting to see kind of what's happening. I know when I go back to Alaska, we've had 3 months of unemployment drop, which is significant. Housing prices in our largest urban area, Anchorage, have gone up 14%. We're seeing some positive results occurring in our state. I think that's a positive statement when you look about this whole country. But anyone who says that Democrats have given up at this moment, I think is a mistake. I think every day we fight for what's right, and today we were fighting on the floor, as you know, for the small business legislation, which will impact small business community. As a former and a current small business person, I know exactly the positive impact this is going to have. So
then you would know, Senator, that a lot of those small business folks aren't that enamored to what you're cooking up here, because they say, well, just lower our taxes across the board. That'll do the trick just fine.
Well, this bill, as you know, it has over $12 billion in tax relief for small business. I'm going to tell you, I'm probably
they argue, Senator, and I don't know who's right here, but they argue they'll save a lot more and do a lot better if you just keep the Bush tax cuts where they are.
Well, there's two points you've made here. First, this legislation in front of us right now, which I think is an important piece of legislation because it also puts in the hands some capital that small banks need to get to small businesses. I can tell you again, as a small business person, that's the biggest complaint that I hear as now a senator and as a small business person, to attract and get capital into the marketplace for small businesses. Now, if you want to talk about the Bush tax cuts and what's going on there, I actually have a much wider view on this. I think we need to move forward for full tax reform. That's why I've supported the Greg Wyden bill, which takes the highest corporate rate, moves it down to 24%. Instead of second highest in the world, we become mid-range, and we compress the 6 individual rates down to 3, 35%, 25%, 15%. It's supported by Brookings and Heritage. To me, that's the right way to go. This tinkering with these pieces of legislation right now, we're going to be having this debate, you and I, next year.
Well, debate. What you're saying makes a great deal of common sense, so my suspicion is it's going to go nowhere. Having said that...
Well, listen, I'll say this. There's a lot of us newer guys here that are pushing forward common sense approach. If you notice, we pushed forward on the oil spill legislation, that we brought forward more common approach. So if you think negative, guess what happens?
Well, you're right, but here's what it comes back down to, Senator. I'd like you to handicap it for me. The great debate seems to be deciding what to do about these tax cuts. And many in your party, even the more moderate, some liberals are saying, while they support eventually raising taxes on the rich, they argue now's not the time to do it, and that a middle ground might be, as Senator Mitch McConnell has advanced, a 2-year extension. Now, he, of course, is a Republican, but a 2-year extension. Joe Lieberman was on this show last night, independent Democrat, saying he'd be open to that. Would you?
I think it's going to be hard to get to a full 2-year extension. Here's why. I think there's a lot of, you got 98% of the people that would receive tax relief if we extend it for the middle class. That's the bottom line. The 2% above, I think there's going to be a hard struggle out there to get some folks to agree to that. Do I think there'll be a short time limit on some package? Yes. But people like me are going to push the envelope and say, if we do a short term, I want real reform, and I'm going to pound away on this issue I just brought up to you on the Greg Wyden bill, which is much more appropriate long term if we're serious. The one thing business community wants is certainty. A 2-year deal is not certainty and will not bring large-scale investment into our business community. You know this as a business person. I know this as a business person. You've got to have certainty. 2 years is irrelevant in the big picture of investment that we need American companies to make. That's why I'm going to make my pitch for the longer-term issue. And that's what we should be doing. And this is Republicans and Democrats.
All right. Senator, we'll watch closely. Thank you.
You got me rolling on this. This is one I love.
I know you're passionate about it, and I appreciate your passion as always. Senator, thank you. Be well.